it's getting a little crowded there, so we did the best we could. Here they come.
And here they are, indeed. The Crew-3 astronauts taking their first steps outside before their journey to space.
All stations, core on countdown. Crew have walked out and are departing the O&C building. We are 4 minutes ahead of schedule.
So the suit techs had their umbrellas on hand and ready?
Yep, you don't want to go to space with a wetsuit.
Yeah.
And so now each crew member standing in front of their family, saying a few words.
Keeping a safe distance?
Yes.
As required before they go into space?
The crew has been in quarantine and they remain in quarantine even at this moment.
There's some laughter and a lot of waving. I believe that's Matthias Maurer on the left-hand side.
I think you're right.
Here's Roger Chong. Tapping his chest near his heart and blowing a kiss.
Absolutely.
What was this moment like for you, Sharon?
Well, it was a bit surreal because it was, my turn to go to the launch pad for real, but it was really nice to see my husband there and get to greet him before I got on a rocket. Of course, he's an astronaut too, so I've been in the other position watching him launch into space.
So you know the feeling on both sides.
I do know the feeling on both sides.
Former NASA astronaut Andy Thomas?
Yes, Andy Thomas.
Who flew on Space Shuttle, I believe the return to flight after
He
Columbia.
did. He was on STS-114. He flew into space 4 times and actually spent 4 months on the Mir space station with the Russians. More waves there to the family.
Well, the way the doors are configured on those Teslas gives you plenty of view.
Yes.
At least more important for the astronaut.
And it makes it easier to get into the Tesla.
It does indeed.
Oh, they're shutting the doors, so soon they'll be heading off to the launch pad.
And these seats are assigned. These astronauts knew exactly which car to go to.
Yes. Yes, indeed. We've got to have it all choreographed to make sure we've got the right people heading out to the launch pad.
That's right. Roger Chari and Tom Marshburn are in the second car, the second Tesla, and Matthias Maurer in the third Tesla. And there's another moment now, and the families get to come around the car.
They get to come a little bit closer for one last moment with their crew member.
It didn't used to be this way.
No, this is actually a tradition that we picked up from the Russians and crews launching on the Soyuz. So the Russians have a space where the crew walks out getting ready to go to where they're going to suit up, and the families are there to greet them before they head off.
Well, it was a great move to copy that and bring that here to the Kennedy Space Center.
I think so. It really shows what an international partnership that we have.
Indeed. Now, these astronauts are about to take a 20-minute drive, Shannon. There's going to be a little rocking out.
Yes. Each car, the crews in each car get to have a little playlist, and they will be cranking up the tunes as they're heading out to the launch pad.
So mentioning that playlist, Tom and Raja, I'm going to tell you a couple of the songs that we were sent that they're going to be listening to. Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses, Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue, and Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
That is a great collection of music for sure.
If that doesn't get you going.
I think so. They will not be sleeping in that car.
And it's interesting, the playlist is actually 10 to 12 songs long. I'm not going to read them all, but they've actually sampled portions, and there they go.
There they go.
When does the music start?
Oh, the music starts immediately now. Yes.
So as we can see, the crew is departing from the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, now beginning that 20-minute drive with a full security escort.
Crew are departing the O&C building on schedule at T-minus 3 hours, 15 minutes.
And there you see a live view of the Crew-3 astronauts making their way to the launch pad here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. You're watching coverage of the launch of Crew-3, just 3 hours and 7 minutes away from lifting off. And Shannon, you drove out at night just like these astronauts. You don't see a whole lot.
Well, we were still, it was a little bit daylight while I drove out because we launched right after sunset. So I could see a few people on the side of the road waving us on and cheering for us. It was pretty special.
I was just going to say, there are folks out lining the road now. We may not see them because of the darkness, but they're there to support.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great feeling.
One thing you didn't miss as it drove by was the vehicle assembly buildings.
It's hard to miss.
It's hard to miss that, even in the dim light that it's currently shining on it right now. But we are here in the middle of a wildlife refuge, and so you're not going to see a lot of city lights. You're not going to see a lot of infrastructure around that illuminates. But you can see the 3 Teslas being led by a Kennedy security vehicle out there out front. It's about a 20-minute drive. And they're getting ready to turn onto the road that goes right in front of the vehicle assembly building. We've got our helicopter up.
We do, watching the action from above. That's good.
Yeah. Watching the convoy as they go along. And as they drive by here, Shannon, 2 of our astronauts, Raja Chari and Kayla Barron, are part of the Artemis 18. As they drive by the VAB, they're well aware that there is a fully stacked Space Launch System rocket that is going to send an Orion spacecraft on a test flight to the moon.
That's right. I know they're aware of it. They're probably not thinking about that right now, but they know it's there, and we are all looking forward to its launch early next year sometime.
In fact, this camera angle is from on top of the VAB looking down 525 feet up.
It's a huge building.
It is one of the largest buildings in the world by volume. And there you can see it passing by the press site area. And
yes, we can see them off to the right here.
We can see them from our host desk position. Passing right by the VAB on the way to pad 39A. Now the crew convoy is approaching the pad and entering what is known as the blast danger area, or BDA. Before any pad technicians, engineers, or astronauts enter this area around the launch pad, the SpaceX and NASA teams have conducted internal go and no-go polls to make sure that the area is safe to enter. And on that ride is mission specialist Kayla Barron, riding along with Matthias Maurer. She has a unique background as a submarine warfare officer. She was a member of the first class of women commissioned into the submarine community, and this is her first trip to space. Impressive. There is a shot of the pad. The astronauts are heading out there, and it's funny, we're talking about Kayla, and we're about to introduce a piece with Matthias, and those 2 are riding in a Tesla together. You got to check out their playlist because it's an eclectic mix. They're listening to Lose Yourself by Eminem, Sun by Rammstein. I hope I said that right. It's a German band. Thunder by Imagine Dragons, and then Dream On, the Aerosmith cover by Ronnie James Dio. You imagine.
That is quite a collection of music there, but it'll get them in the mood.
It will. It will. And there they are driving up to pad 39A, Shannon, and they might have spotted 2 rockets because SpaceX actually has a second rocket up on pad 40 for the Starlink launch. There's a static fire tomorrow. So as they drive out there, 1 rocket on the left, 1 rocket on the right.
Let's hope they pick the right rocket to go to.
It looks like they're headed the right direction.
It does.
So that's a good thing. And here comes the vehicles, the Teslas, with the astronauts inside.
All stations core on countdown. Crew have arrived at the pad 5 minutes ahead of schedule.
So they're going to pull the cars around and park right at the base of the launch structure there.
Pull right up to the pad.
Right up to the pad.
Was it this close for shuttle and Apollo, would you know, in terms of the vehicle getting access there to the pad?
I believe it was. Now, I did not fly on the shuttle, so I can't tell you for sure, but I believe they did bring the bus that was carrying the crew out there right up close to the launch pad as well.
That's a great shot as they make their way, the three vehicles, to the rocket.
To the rocket. Beautiful.
Now, before the crew makes their way to the elevator at the ground level of Pad 39A, let's get a look at mission specialist and ESA astronaut Matthias Maurer about him making his first flight into orbit.
You'll see after they step out of the elevators, the crew actually has to go up a flight of stairs. Look, I see one of the crew members
and
right
there
now.
Comes the first two astronauts.
Looks like
Commander
they're gonna...
Raja Chari and pilot Tom Marshburn.
Yep, and it looks like they are going to take a look at the rocket. There they are, bending back, looking up.
Having a little chat as they look. At about 2 hours and 35 minutes, and just a few minutes from now, the astronauts will ingress or climb into Dragon with the assistance of the suit techs that you have seen right next to them all along. They'll help them get buckled in. Getting a nice good gaze,
Yes,
looking up.
good look. So now they're heading to the elevators for their trip to the top.
It is nightfall here at the Kennedy Space Center, and we had clouds earlier on. It's a little harder to see, but the misty rain that was coming down earlier, Shannon, and managed to blow in here on the host desk a little bit, that stopped, and that's a good sign.
It is a good sign that the rain has stopped.
They've made, of course, upgrades to Pad 39A over the years. In the 1960s, of course, it launched the Saturn V for the Apollo program. It was then upgraded to support the space shuttle. And then SpaceX took a lease of it in 2014. And the first flight after it was reconfigured was a CRS flight in February of 2017. And there they are, popping up from the elevator, having a look around.
That's right, and you'll see them head to the stairs to go up one more level with the suit techs and the team following behind.
And exactly what you mentioned, this is the additional flight that they must take to get to the top of Dragon. And it looks like Stephanie Wilson is in their group.
Yep, she will be there with the crew just as long as possible to aid them in any way that they might need.
The mission specialists, I understand now, are also in the elevator and headed on their way up. And in this particular view, Shannon, we know that there's a telephone there to the right of the pathway.
That's right. So when they're up at the top of the launch pad, the crew will actually get an opportunity to call their families. And so someone's got the phone numbers, they'll be dialing for the crew and hand the phone over to the crew member. And I have to say, it's a little bit hard to hear because you've got that helmet around you, so it's not like you get the phone right up to your ear.
And it's got big buttons. You showed me a picture on your phone.
Yes.
I appreciate, maybe it's if for those who have gloves on, still manage to punch them.
Exactly. We want to make sure those phone calls happen.
This is a split screen view that we just saw as you see the mission specialists, Caleb Barron and Matthias Maurer, making his way up the steps there, and they are all gathered now on that 255-foot level of 39A.
Yes, and so they're waiting either for the phone calls or for their cue that it's actually time to ingress the capsule.
To making that software. And there's a view inside the crew access arm, Raja Chari, Tom Marshburn, as they make their way looking out the windows towards their spacecraft. It's a great shot inside that.
That is a great shot.
That access arm.
And there they are approaching the end. The capsule's
A
just
white
off to their
room,
left.
Right?
Yep.
There's a
white
little
room.
tradition that happens inside there.
Yes, we will sign the wall of the white room. Got to make our mark.
And they're starting to do that there and getting a little guidance from one of the closeout techs.
All stations
If you're
core on
just joining
countdown.
us,
Pilot and commander have arrived at the White Room. We are 10 minutes ahead of schedule.
the announcement of arrival. If you're just joining us, you are watching live coverage of NASA's SpaceX mission known as Crew-3. Good evening and welcome to the Kennedy Space Center here in Florida. I'm Daryl Nail, along with a recent passenger aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon, NASA astronaut Shannon Walker. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. I am so excited to be here tonight.
You've given us some great insight. And not only that, I get to watch a launch with an astronaut, which is pretty cool.
I get to watch a launch too, so it's all good.
It's all working out. So we are watching the first two astronauts get ready to board, and there's been some mist out there, so we got to dry off the helmets.
Yes. As I said previously, you don't want to have a wetsuit when you get into the capsule. So the suit techs there will make sure that everything is just right before the crew gets inside.
And it's a bit of a maneuver to get inside, Shannon, that you practice, and we're about to see that.
Yeah, you'll see that the astronaut has to carefully bend down and step over the hatchway. They do this for a couple of reasons. One, obviously you don't want to hit your head on the capsule going inside. You don't want to hurt your helmet at all. And then two, you don't want to nick the seals on that hatchway because you need those seals to work properly to maintain pressure inside the capsule.
And we just saw Raja step inside, and next up is Tom. And it's they're carefully placed inside. I saw one of the techs, hold him up, say, well, hold on.
Right. We do this just so the choreography needs to be just right. So Raja's getting settled inside. He will be followed by Tom. And then after that, you'll probably see the suit techs go inside and start assisting with the strapping of the seatbelts.
And good evening, Raja. I have you loud and clear. Welcome to Endurance.
All right, for now,
I got you loud and clear as well.
Had a communication check there, and we'll watch Tom ingress to the Dragon capsule carefully. Watch your head.
Yep, watch your head, watch the seals.
As he goes inside and takes a seat right next to the commander, Rajachari. And for now, let's check back in with Jesse and Courtney back at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Jesse?
Thanks, Daryl. Right now, we're watching the crew ingressing Dragon, which is just a spaceflight term for climbing aboard. Ingress is what we use when crew members are getting into a spacecraft or airlock, while egress means the opposite, they're exiting. Before climbing into the capsule today, the crew completed a foreign objects debris check, or FOD check. That means they themselves have to be inspected for any substance or debris that isn't supposed to be on them or their suits, which could potentially cause damage to Dragon.
To help protect against debris, the crew has covers on their boots as well as their umbilical port on their suits that need to be removed before they can ingress. As you can see on your screen, they are now actually crossing the crew arm right now, and soon they will start ingressing into the vehicle and then start attaching their umbilicals to their suits from Dragon, and the suit techs are there to help them as needed along the way. And what a great shot of a couple of our crew members crossing the crew access arm, waving hello. The umbilicals allow the crew to have comms through their suit, air to help keep them cool, as well as delivers nitrox for the suit pressurization. Now, as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the suit's primary function is to protect the crew in the event of a cabin depressurization.
Yeah, that's right. And there are 4 seats configured right now inside of Dragon, and they are numbered 1 to 4 from right to left when looking at the seats. Rajachari will be in seat 2, or the commander seat, and Tom Marshburn will be beside him in seat 3, which for Crew Dragon is the pilot seat. Kayla Barron will be in seat 1, and Matthias Maurer will be in seat 4. Directly in front of the crew members are 3 displays, which they'll use throughout flight, getting inside into Dragon systems, seeing any alerts or issues with the vehicle, if required, taking control and manually flying Dragon.
Now we're getting some great shots of the crew members signing that white wall room. And once they ingress and get buckled in and strapped into their seats, they will do a comm check to make sure that they can hear mission control, and then their seats will be rotated into position for launch.
And the crew looks happy as ever as they're running through some of these final steps before climbing into Dragon. Again, this is really their last stop on Earth, right here in the White Room.
Looks like they're trying to say hello to the camera there, saying hello to the world.
Again, wiping off those helmets. There was a little bit of rain outside before they entered the building, so they just have to make sure that their suits are clean, their helmets are clean. They also have a protective layer on their boots that's taken off before they get inside of Dragon. You can almost think of it as if you just cleaned your floors and you have something on your shoes that you don't want to bring into your house, you would take those off at the back door. And that's basically some of those steps that they're running through right now.
And as you mentioned, Courtney, you mentioned FOD, foreign object debris, even water. A foreign object debris is basically anything that is not supposed to be where we expect it to be. And that includes that water, that rain, any of the dirt while they were walking outside. So we want to make sure that we keep that outside of the Dragon capsule and keep that clean room environment inside of that
SpaceX
vehicle.
Dragon.
And getting a view now.
C3 com check.
And Tom, great to hear your voice. Welcome.
That's loud and clear, Sarah. Good to hear your voice, too.
And we'll hear some of those informal comm checks as they climb aboard Dragon and get hooked in to their umbilicals and into their seats. Getting a view right now inside of Dragon. Rajachari closest to us right now.
Sarah, this is Kayla with a comm check from seat 1.
Kayla, I have you loud and clear. Great to have you on board. Welcome.
Have you loud and clear as well? Thanks, Sarah.
And again, an informal comm check from Kayla Barron, mission specialist on this mission. And you just saw them already working on those displays, those gloves that they have touchscreen capabilities. So they're able to just get into their seats and get right to it.
Yeah, it must be pretty exciting. As soon as they got into their seats, they started to check it out.
And we can see Matthias Maurer climbing aboard now.
Again, Dragon is designed for up to 7 crew members, but today we only have 4 crew members, so it is configured for the 4 crew members on board Crew-3 today. But underneath their seats is where the extra 3 seats would be. Since we don't have them, we actually use that space underneath their seats for cargo.
Yeah, and you'll actually get to see some of that cargo once those seats get rotated into launch position, which is one of those visual milestones that we'll run through. But right now, we're standing by for some official comm checks from all of the crew. We've already heard some informal comm checks, the crew getting excited as they get into their seats, get hooked up to their umbilicals. Those umbilicals, of course, providing air and comms through their suits. And these suits fit specifically to each astronaut, from the gloves to the top, the bottom, and the boots.
Yeah, they are custom made, and we always say that it's basically an extension of the Dragon capsule because of how this is basically their own personal AC unit.
SpaceX Dragon, seat 4 comm check. Is Matthias. Sarah, how do you read me?
I have you loud and clear, Matthias. Guten Abend und willkommen.
Wonderful, Sarah. I also have you loud and clear. Ich freue mich auf den Flug.
And another successful informal comm check from Matthias Maurer. Again, all 4 crew members of Crew-3 now inside Dragon.
Yeah, and you can see the suit techs are there helping them get strapped in. This is a 5-point harness buckling them into their seats. Looks like Rajachari and Tom Marshburn are already buckled in as Matthias and Kayla finish up getting connected to their umbilicals and get their harnesses buckled up. Again, the suit techs are following procedures, specific procedures to make sure that they do check everything. And once the crew members are all buckled in, they'll also check around the cabin and make sure that the cargo is packed away exactly how they planned, make sure that there are no loose objects inside of the cabin, and finishing out their closeout procedures before they close the hatch.
One of the things we've mentioned several times are those umbilicals that they get hooked into once they're seated. Those umbilicals allow the crew to receive communications through their suit. They also provide air to help keep them cool and comfortable, as well as delivering nitrox for suit pressurization. Of course, these suits' primary function is to protect the crew in the unlikely event of a cabin depressurization.
Yeah, that's right, Courtney. So they'll keep these suits on all the way through ascent. Once they get out into orbit, as they cruise to the International Space Station, they'll be able to doff their suits or get out of their suits and get a little bit more comfortable on the ride to the International Space Station.
So again, we've run through some informal comm checks. There will be some more formal comm checks coming up. They'll be doing multiple comm checks through multiple paths to Dragon. They'll do some through TDRS, and that's our tracking data and relay satellite system. We use that for communications with the International Space Station as well. They'll also do some ground checks. You'll hear the term ground, which refers to the ground stations around the globe, allowing us to get communications to Dragon, to the multiple ground stations, again, here in Hawthorne, Mission Control Hawthorne, where Jesse and I are, as well as Mission Control Houston being two of the main players in the climb uphill. Once those comm checks are completed, their seats will be rotated into position for launch.
Yeah, and it's getting pretty exciting. This is like one of the most exciting parts when they start getting settled into their seats in Dragon. It starts really getting real, and they start doing those closeout procedures to close everything out inside of the capsule and then close the hatch. And as Courtney mentioned, we are just waiting for comm checks coming up next. And then following comm checks, they will do seat rotation followed by suit leak checks.
You can see Tom Marshburn and Rajachari really starting to work on those displays above them. But as we mentioned, once they do get rotated into launch position, they'll be able to see those displays much easier. Their arms will be able to reach them much easier. And like I mentioned before, they do have touchscreen capabilities on those gloves.
Yeah, but you can still reach screens even in the seat rotation right now.
So if you're just joining us, the crew already arrived at pad 39A. They walked down the crew access arm to where they are now inside of Dragon. Of course, they made that stop in the White Room. They got to sign the wall before climbing in. They also did a FOD check, or foreign objects debris check, to make sure they weren't bringing anything that could potentially harm Dragon or them on their climb uphill to the International Space Station. Getting views now inside of Dragon. Commander Rajachari, closest to us, Tom Marshburn, to the right of him on your screen right now, giving a thumbs up. Yep, and everything is still on track right now for an on-time launch today. So let's check in with John Innsbrucker for the latest with the health of both of the vehicles. John, what's the status so far?
Well, the good news, Courtney, is everything's looking good. We've got just over 2.5 hours remaining in the countdown until Falcon 9 lifts off with Dragon and Crew-3 aboard, heading for the International Space Station. Now, the Dragon launch ops team has completed their major activities to prepare the spacecraft for the astronauts, obviously, now that we've got the crew inside. We've done checkouts of the major systems, including the escape system. We've got all 4 crew members inside the capsule, getting strapped down, getting ready for their comm checks. There are no issues in work right now on the Dragon spacecraft. Now, in the next few minutes, we should be starting up the comm checks with the crew and Dragon. We heard the informal ones as each member got hooked up, but there are 3 sets of comm checks that get done. As Courtney mentioned, the first one is the umbilical comm checks. That's essentially a hardline harness that's attached from the ground up through the launch tower into the Dragon capsule right to the spacesuits. Then we'll do a check with the ground station. That's essentially where we bring up a SpaceX ground station here on Earth, and we talk to the crew through the radio frequency link. And then lastly, when we're on orbit, we will also use the NASA Tracking and Data Relay satellites called TDRS. That's a constellation of 10 geosynchronous satellites that allows us to be in communication with Dragon most of the time when it's in orbit, and especially when we may not be over a ground station. So we're waiting to hear those call-outs right now in the Dragon countdown procedure. And once they're complete, then we'll move on into the next steps, which is essentially getting the crew into launch configuration and backing the ground support team out of the capsule. Now, over on the Falcon 9 side, the team is located in Firing Room 4 in the Launch Control Center at Kennedy Space Center. They're settling in for their final checkouts and propellant loading and launch. Now, the Falcon 9 team will also undergo comm checks with the crew. That happens about T-minus 2 hours when the various responsible engineers who bring information to the crew during ascent, the avionics engineer, the guidance nav and control engineer, the propulsion engineer, they all make sure that the crew can hear them as they report the status of Falcon 9 as we head uphill into orbit. Now, currently on the range, the third of what we call the 4 factors to support the launch: spacecraft, rocket, then we've got range. They continue to report no problems. They're releasing the weather balloons for us, and we're gathering the data as the balloons get up to altitude to let us know what the wind shear looks like. Good news is the weather, the 4th element, is looking good for launch. We're still showing a 30% probability of violation, but the things haven't changed. Weather forecaster still believes that the weather will stay to the west of the launch pad and we'll have good conditions for launch. Now, we're looking at weather not only at the launch site, but around the world. We need to be able to get Dragon safely down if there's a splashdown in the Atlantic, for example, in the case of an escape maneuver. We're also monitoring contingency splashdown locations if the crew had to come back to Earth before docking with the space station. Now, if this were to happen, SpaceX and NASA, as I mentioned earlier, we are coordinating with the U.S. Coast Guard to ensure crew safety upon splashdown. That includes extra ships and air assets to patrol a 10 nautical mile keep-out zone. This helps mitigate safety concerns for any boaters who might be trying to approach the landing area. But the good news is the clock continues to count down at T-minus 2 hours, 27 minutes, and 35 seconds. All systems are go. We're going to head back over to Jesse and Courtney here just across from me in Hawthorne as we wait for the communication checks with the Crew-3 team.
Thanks, John. As John just mentioned, we are waiting for the formal comm checks. And in order to get to where we are today, it did take years of hard work. The development of Crew Dragon really started with the cargo Dragon. Dragon was designed from the beginning for flying humans to space, so much so that even the first Dragon cargo Dragon had a window. Before we could fly humans, our teams implemented a number of design upgrades to make sure that both Dragon and Falcon 9 are suitable for flying people, and then put both vehicles through thousands of tests to prove their safety.
Present humanity's dream to explore Mars. A beautiful patch there.
Oh, it is a lovely patch. It is very well crafted.
You work with the artist that puts it together?
Yes, so each crew can either design it themselves or they have a choice to work with an artist. And so the crews are trying to take elements of what they feel really represents their flight and put it into a patch.
And I imagine, has anybody drawn one themselves?
Oh, sure.
Oh, how about that? Especially the artist, Nicole Stott, former shuttle astronaut.
Yes.
She's an artist.
She's definitely an artist. I love her work.
As you can see them preparing for the hatch closure, it looks like they are documenting the seal around the hatch.
Yes, they will. They're looking very carefully to make sure that seal is completely intact, because that's what's going to hold the pressure inside the capsule.
You don't want any foreign object debris, what we know here at NASA as FOD.
It's FOD, right?
Which is anything that's not supposed to be there?
Anything that's not supposed to be there. And it can be, they're looking for really tiny things. Something as small as a human hair will cause that seal to not operate properly.
And they're using, it appears to be smartphones to take these pictures.
They do. I mean, the cameras on the phones are so good these days that you can take some pictures and blow them up and really get a good view of what that hatch seal looks like.
They are good cameras indeed. Flying just before the last flight of the Crew Dragon, I should say, was the crew from Inspiration 4. And Our NASA social team was putting together our page for this launch from the Kennedy Space Center, and they, as you can see, the hatch being closed right there. They're going to push on that to make sure it seals up really good.
They're going to push on it because the hatch itself, if it's not locked, it wants to spring open. So you've got to overcome that force to get the latches to latch on that hatch.
And so we'll hold the thought on the NASA social video as we look. Looks like the crew closeout number 36 was putting a fair amount of force.
Yes, it did look like he was pushing hard, but that's good. We'll get that hatch closed.
And now begins the process of them sealing it up.
Sealing it up and doing all kinds of checks and cross checks, because they'll seal it up. There'll be a pressure check to make sure the pressure does in fact hold inside the capsule, and you'll see teams of people here working together to make sure every step is done exactly so.
Carefully and methodically working their way. 255 feet up in the air, we might add, in the white room. As they work on closing up that hatch, let's head out to California and catch up with John I for an update on the operations. John?
Countdown is proceeding nominally at this point, and thanks, Daryl, for that handoff. We're coming up just inside T-minus 2 hours. Now, on board the brand new Dragon spacecraft Endurance, we've heard a lot of the communication between the crew and the ground. Comm checks were complete. We saw the astronaut seats rotated to the flight position. The suit leak checks were successfully completed, and we've been watching the closeout leads lean into that hatch, getting it secure, and we're getting ready now to begin what will be the hatch leak checks to make sure that all the seals are good, everything's bolted down tight, ready to go. Once we finish the final leak checks, the team will begin the steps to close out the white room and get the access arm ready to retract. And then that closeout team that you see there will leave the pad by about T-minus 1 hour, and that'll leave just the 4 astronauts on the pad. Now for Falcon 9, their team for countdown is on console. Here you can see firing room 4. They're preparing for communication checks with the astronauts coming up in just a few minutes. Currently on Falcon 9, the engineers have pressurized launch vehicle gas storage bottles. That was done before we cleared the pad. These are composite overwrapped pressure vessels. They hold gases that are used to fill the propellant tanks with hot helium as that propellant is pulled out of the first and second stages by the Merlin turbopumps. As we get into the last half hour of the countdown, we'll do a final top off of those pressure vessels, make sure that we're at flight load. We also use these pressurized gases to spin the Merlin engine turbopump when we have to start an engine in space. So the second stage MVAC engine has to start up after the first stage separates. And the first stage engines, we've got 3 of them need to restart to begin the entry, and then 1 engine for the final landing sequence. So all of those engines need the helium gas to be able to spin and start the engines. The gases are also used for attitude control systems. Not so much on the way up, but it helps orient the vehicle after the first stage separates and comes back down for the landing on the drone ship. And we also use the gas to deploy the grid fins and to kick the landing legs out just before we land on the drone ship. We're continuing to monitor weather at the launch site and around the world at contingency abort and landing zones. Concerns we're looking at continue to be the same too since we started the webcast. Cumulus clouds and flight through precipitation. Now, a moment ago, the range did report that currently right now we are no-go on weather for flying through precipitation, but they also expect that to clear up and for us to be go when we get to launch. So this is just a temporary. They have to tell us when we're not meeting all of the weather rules, but right now it doesn't look like a concern. So the good news is weather's looking good. Dragon's right on time. Falcon 9 is quiet, getting ready for its big events coming up here in another hour or so. And so with that, we're going to hand it back to the team at Kennedy.
All right, thank you, John I. And yes, indeed, we can confirm there was some weather that came through here.
Yes, there was.
It was a little bit of rain, a light storm, our launch weather officer tells us, Ryan Sizik, informing us that it was a light one. It was passing through, but in fact, when it's here, it does cause that to go red.
Exactly. If it's raining here, we would probably not launch into it. Thankfully, there is no lightning, which is another criteria that we use to determine whether or not we are go for launch.
We're back inside the capsule now. We're awaiting a couple of things. They're going to do some comm checks. They're going to do some suit leak checks. And in fact, I think you were able to eye when that happens. The suit leak check, do they?
Oh, the suit leak checks. Yeah, you can tell when they are doing a leak checks. I believe they've already occurred, but one of the things that happens is you have your visors closed, all your zippers zipped up, and they will pressurize the suit. So you'll get extra air volume inside your suit. So the suits will kind of puff up. You can see that when the leak check happens.
And now the half-down visor look is
it's very fashionable.
The look of the day. In this moment, as they await, what is that like? Because, I mean, they're waiting to go to space, launching on a rocket.
Yes. They know they've got just under 2 hours to wait. So a couple of things are going on. Of course, each crew member there is thinking about their role during the launch. They're probably chit-chatting a little bit amongst themselves, trying to stay comfortable in those suits, and probably just trying to enjoy the experience of actually being in their
Dragon
spacecraft.
SpaceX, we will be commencing health checks for the launch escape system. Expect momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
Endurance copies.
That's a call out to check the health of the emergency escape system.
Yes, this is what's primarily happening in those last hours before launch. Is the SpaceX team is checking all the systems on the spacecraft to make sure everything is working properly. And of course, the launch escape system is one of the main systems that we need to work properly during a launch.
Especially with that hatch closed.
Yes, exactly.
So we've got about an hour now until the pad team wraps up the final checks and clears the white room, and that's when the action will pick up with the crew access arm retracting. We've had some progress since we had John's update. Some of that progress we've seen so far. Shannon, why don't you outline some of that for us?
Well, so what we've done, you can see there that the closeout crew is still working on closing out the hatch. That does take a while, longer than one might expect. But again, I want to make sure that everything is done just so that hatch will hold its pressure. Before the hatch closure, we had the suit leak check, so we want those space suits to work properly should we need them in an emergency. And they've done some other systems checks to get ready for the all-important arming of the launch escape system.
Absolutely. And we saw a shot there of the crew, or the closeout crew. They were tethered, as you can see there, both the crew member on the left and the right. You can see those tethers because they're literally 255 feet up in the air.
They are, and there's a little space there that we do not want them to fall through. So
absolutely,
that's why we keep them tethered.
And it looks like a step ladder there, in case they need to get up a little higher.
Boost up, right? Exactly.
It's good to have the right tools on hand. Here in just a few seconds, around an hour and 30 minutes before liftoff in our launch timeline, we should have that launch escape system and communication checks conducted by the Falcon launch team. These checkouts, as Shannon mentioned, they're standard part of the launch countdown. Of course, it's critical to make sure everything is working in order before arming this launch escape system. We'll get this call out in just a few seconds.
Yeah, it looks like the closeout crew is finishing up. Hopefully all is good, checking out with that hatch there. And as soon as they probably back away and leave, we will hear the arming of the launch escape system. But I tell you, if there's still work to do, they will sit there and keep working until that hatch is adequately closed and we know that it will hold pressure.
What does it sound like as you're sitting there in the seat and they're working on it from the outside?
Yeah, you kind of hear some thumping and bumping going on, and you do have those two windows in front, so you can kind of see a little bit what's happening, but mostly you really don't know exactly what they're doing. You just know that they are working on it and getting that much closer to launch. Looks like we're going to need to check something out a little bit taller, higher up on the capsule there.
Well, that step ladder came in handy.
Yeah, it sure did.
Not sure what that was.
I am not sure what that was either, but it looked like it was a duct to flow air or something to the spacecraft. Clearly it did not need to be there for the launch, and so they spent the time needed to remove it.
It did look like some ducting.
Yes.
As they continue to work here. And as you mentioned, they will take the time necessary to make sure everything is secure.
Absolutely right. And everybody knows what the timeline milestones are, so they have a very good idea of when they need to finish up this activity. They're not going to rush through it by any stretch of the imagination. They're going to do it very methodically, very carefully, but we do have a timeline because, as was mentioned previously, it is an instantaneous launch window. We need to launch exactly on time.
That instantaneous window needed to rendezvous with the International Space Station on time.
Exactly.
But in this schedule, they're aware, as you said, of where they have some flexibility.
Right. So nothing is timelined so tightly that we don't have a little bit of padding to take care of problems. Now, I don't know if they've got a problem they're addressing or if they're just doing the normal work, because I was not a member of the closeout team, so I don't know all of what they are doing, but they do have a good sense of when that work needs to be finished.
You were on the other side, inside the capsule for Crew-1. It does appear that the closeout crew member is now documenting with the camera phone.
Right, again.
All of the area around that capsule.
Yep.
You can see some of the closeout crew making their way out of the white room and down the crew access arm.
Oh, that's a very good sign. So looks like they are definitely finishing up their work, and soon, hopefully, we will hear that the launch escape system is armed.
We're expecting that in just a few seconds, really any moment now. But he's got the light and the camera, still working that.
Yep, they're taking one last look to make sure that there is nothing trapped in that hatchway and that would inhibit the seals from working properly. It's interesting watching them work, don't you think?
Yes, it is. It's very thorough.
Very
I appreciate
thorough.
that.
Yes, very thorough. They'll have a set of procedures. I don't know if we've seen it, but the closeout crew will have tablets with them, and they will have on the tablets every step that they need to do.
And they'll also have those pictures that accompany each and every step that they took. So if they need to, for any reason,
to go back
and look at it.
Yep, exactly so.
This is, we should note, a brand new Dragon capsule.
It is. They get to ride in a new Dragon. That's exciting.
The booster.
The booster is a refurbished one, so it is not making its first flight.
Flew on CRS-22, landed back, was refurbished and
ready for use.
Ready for use, yeah.
Launch control at this time. You may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
Just over T-minus 44 minutes. We're going to send it back to Daryl and the team at Kennedy Space Center as we get ready to move the crew access arm.
That's right, John. We are waiting that big moment here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. As we do, we are T-minus 43 minutes and counting, and
Correct.
just got some...
Retraction has started.
And there is the retraction. Great shot of the Dragon moving. It's not moving. The crew access arm is.
Is moving away from it, yep. And you can see that from inside the Dragon as well.
And there it goes. When you're in the capsule, can you see that?
You can. You have windows that are at pretty much your foot level, and you can see a little bit out. So you do see that moving away, and once it's gone, you know it's just you and the rocket.
There's the camera pointed directly at Dragon. Great view there. You can see the strong back at the top.
Oh, that is a fantastic view.
And this crew access arm can move faster than it's doing right now under certain circumstances, right?
Absolutely. If it needs to go back to being up against the capsule, it can move quite quickly, actually.
It was just not too long ago, about an hour ago, that we saw the astronauts walking down that very crew access arm. Now it is rotating away from the rocket.
Just one more step closer to launch. An important milestone.
Absolutely. I'm enjoying just watching the various parts of the launch pad go by
yes.
as we look out that
Yeah, you don't
moving
often
arm.
get that view, so
No.
it is, might as well soak it in while we've got it.
There's nobody inside that arm. There's nobody on the pad. The only people who are there are the 4 astronauts inside that SpaceX Dragon capsule. You can see the water deluge system to the left, out the opening there to the white room.
Crew access arm retraction complete.
And we just heard the call out that the crew access arm has completed its retraction away from the rocket. And so up next,
Dragon SpaceX, you are go
We
for
wanna do a
Section
little-
7 of 4.100. Close visors and arm the launch escape system.
Endurance copies will go
And that's
for
what's
Section 7
up
of
next.
4.100.
arming the launch escape system. And while we await that, let's take a social question.
Oh,
for
that
Shannon.
sounds like a great idea.
Michelle Stone asks, as an astronaut, what moment does it become real that you are about to launch to space?
You know, Michelle, it is right about now. So you know everything else has happened according to plan, and this is really the final bit before you launch into space. So anything had gone wrong previously, the access arm was there and you could just exit the capsule. Now it's just
SpaceX
you and
Endurance,
the
our visors
rocket.
are closed. We're arming the launch escape system.
And arming the launch escape system, as we just heard that call, is a major milestone.
Because you know, if for some reason something were to happen, that's how you're getting off the top of that rocket.
That is correct. If something happens, if it's detected on the ground or by the systems on the Dragon or the Falcon 9, it will engage that launch escape system and that crew will go shooting off that rocket.
Let's take another question now. Shannon, been doing so well with these questions.
I love answering questions.
Well, excellent. Here's another one. Are there pre-launch rituals and activities that the crew go through before launch?
You know, we do have some, I would say, traditions, and it's kind of interesting now that we're in the commercial
Launch escape system is verified armed.
Okay, the launch escape system is armed.
Endurance copies, we see the same.
So we have traditions that come from the Apollo days. We've got traditions that we actually experienced over in Russia when we were flying on Soyuzes, and so we sort of combined a few. A lot of them, as you've seen earlier, involves the crew sticking their stickers on various places.
Yes. Everywhere you can.
Everywhere we can. We want people to know we were here.
And one more question for you, Shannon, as we await the loading of propellant into the Falcon 9 rocket. Hey NASA, while watching the launch of Crew-3, I noticed the astronauts have a little mirror on their suits on their left arm. What are they for?
Yes, good eye to notice that.
Good eye.
Good eye. Yes, that mirror is actually will let you inspect your spacesuit to make sure everything is fine. So once you're in the spacecraft by yourself, if you open your visor and you need to shut it, you want to make sure, in my case, that your hair is not crossing the boundary and would interrupt the seal that is necessary to keep that pressure on the inside. So they use that to make sure their spacesuit is in perfect condition.
How about that? I hadn't even noticed it. It is wonderful when we get these questions from the viewers and the people who are watching, because they're looking so closely.
They are looking closely, and it's great that people are picking up those details.
Well, let's take another one then, since we've got some great questions coming in. Can you keep your spacesuit after the mission?
Oh man, I wish I could keep my spacesuit. I don't know where I would put it, but no, unfortunately we are not allowed to keep our spacesuits.
You couldn't stuff it and put it in the foyer?
It's just over 12 minutes, and everything is still looking good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon. Falcon 9 did begin propellant loading on time at T-minus 35 minutes. The RP-1 fuel loading on the second stage, you can see up at the top, the white cylinder at the very top of the stack. Fuel loading on that stage is complete. Fuel loading is continuing on the first stage. We're about 80% of the way full, and it will finish up at T-minus 6 minutes. The densified liquid oxygen loading is also underway on the first stage. We're about 3/4 of the way full, and we began loading liquid oxygen on the second stage about 5 minutes ago. Now, liquid oxygen loading is the last thing to finish. We'll wrap up first stage at T-minus 3 minutes, second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. Coming up, we're going to do final checks of various engine systems. Our thrust vector controllers are going to be moved. We call them TVC wiggles, where we move the engines back and forth slightly. We'll also be moving throttle valves on the engines to make sure that they are responding to commands from the ground in preparation for flight. The Dragon mission director has reported their team is working no issues. We're going to hear from Dragon in about a minute here on the countdown. Their comm checks are complete. You can see the axis arm is retracted. The launch escape system is armed. Crew is strapped in and they're ready to go. They'll get their final instructions at T-minus 10 minutes. They'll be told to configure their displays for launch, and that setup will give the crew insight into how the launch is proceeding and provide them constant updates on vehicle health. At T-minus 5 minutes, we'll be in terminal count, and Dragon will go to internal power, and we'll hear continued callouts on the countdown net as we get closer to liftoff. And finally, easy to say, range is go, weather is go. So right now, Courtney, we're coming up on T-minus 10 minutes. One of the things that we'll hear on Dragon flights that we don't hear on other ones is the abort call-outs during the countdown. Can you enlighten us a little bit on what goes on with that?
Yeah, John, great to hear that everything is going well. We're continuing to track that Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for launch. But just in case anything were to happen, Dragon is fully prepared to initiate an abort. Upon liftoff, you'll be hearing number and letter combinations on Dragon's trip uphill, which will mark different abort zones throughout the flight, the number signifying the stage of flight and the letter as the abort
Dragon
zone.
SpaceX,
The
confirm
first
crew displays are configured for launch.
Copy. Endurance displays are configured for launch.
And copy that. Crew-3, we are honored to have you at the controls today as the first crew to fly aboard Dragon Endurance. We wish you a great mission, viel Glück, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
Thanks, Sarah. And sometimes when you try to fly on Halloween, you get a trick instead of a treat. But how honored and appropriate to get to fly Endurance on Veterans Day. We're proud and honored to represent the SpaceX and NASA teams as we head to the ISS to live and work on groundbreaking science for the next 6 months.
And there we have it, some final words from the crew aboard Dragon, and a good luck from the Corps here on the ground to the crew. John, with everything still looking good, that next milestone of engine chill is coming up next.
That's right. The next major event that we have is T-minus 7 minutes. It's what we call the engine chill event. The big thing that happens there is we open the pre-valves that feed the Merlin 1D engines. So super chilled liquid oxygen will be trickling through the inlet to the Merlin turbo pumps, and that'll help chill those turbo pumps down before we hit them with the full flow of liquid oxygen during the ignition sequence in the last 3 seconds before T0. So what we'll hear is a call out says stage 1 engine chill has started. We'll be monitoring all 9 engines to make sure the aux fuel pre-valves are all open. We're also chilling down second stage engine as we get ready for launch. And you'll hear an additional chill down of the second stage called out once we get into flight, a little bit before 2 minutes into flight, when we'll do a final chill of the upper stage engine turbo pumps. And if you might be able to hear behind me here in Hawthorne, a lot of energy. Folks are gathered around Mission Control Center, watching on the big monitors as we get ready for launch in just over 7 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, in addition, as I mentioned before, as we get ready at 7 minutes to open the pre-valves and begin the engine chill sequence, we're also getting ready then to move into check-out reviews. The fuel trim valves are being cycled, make sure that those are working. We use that to throttle the amount of propellant going through the first stage down to the engines as we go through flight. Coming up on T-minus 7 minutes, we'll listen into the countdown now.
Stage 1 engine chill has begun.
So you've heard it. We're through another milestone. Next one coming up here at 6 minutes.
Yep, that's right, John. And that RP1 kerosene is filling that second stage. We're anticipating a little longer for that first stage to be completely filled with that RP1 refined kerosene. Liquid oxygen will continue to flow through the first and second stages up until the final few minutes before launch. That next call will be that the stage 1 RP load is complete, coming up now in about 15 seconds.
Stage 1
We'll
RP1
stand by
load
for that
complete.
call now. And confirmation, we have a complete fill of RP1 on the first stage. Now the first and second stage are completely filled with that RP1 kerosene. Now just under 6 minutes to launch until that instantaneous launch window today. The next milestone will be for Dragon to transition to configure for terminal count, and that's when Dragon's onboard computers will take control of the vehicle, and Dragon will be on internal power, no longer relying on those lines from the ground. From there, Falcon 9 tanks will pressurize for strong back retract. That'll be another visual milestone. The clamps just below Dragon's trunk will open and the strong back will tilt back just 2 degrees, then right after liftoff back to 45 degrees. Again, RP1 kerosene filled on both the first and second stages. Liquid oxygen continues to flow through on the first and second stages. Standing by now for that call that Dragon has transitioned into terminal count.
Dragon isn't configured for terminal count. Falcon 9 propellant tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
All right, John, some good calls. Dragon is now on internal power, and Falcon 9 propellant tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
Yes, thanks, Courtney. What we're waiting to hear now is the call out for strong back is retracting. This will be a 2-step process. First, we'll spend about half a minute opening up the arms that clamp around the second stage. And there's the call out. The sequence has begun. So we'll slowly open up the arms around the second stage. We might get a view if we've got a close-up of the camera. Then once the arms are open, the strong back alongside Falcon 9 will retract about 2 degrees away from the rocket. It'll stay there all the way through liftoff, and then as Courtney mentioned, at liftoff, hydraulics will then pull it down to about a 45-degree position above ground, and that'll give us the final clearance. It's that strong back right now that is providing the liquids, the gas connections, the electrical connections to the launch vehicle, especially the second stage. We're hearing some of the venting of the vehicle as we are pressurizing and depressurizing at various steps. As we get ready, you'll see a burst of depressurization there on the second stage.
That's right, John. We're also anxiously awaiting the stage 1 liquid oxygen is complete on the first stage. You should hear that call coming up here shortly.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
And confirmation that the stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Right now, LOX is going to continue loading on second stage.
Dragon
That'll wrap up
count
at T-minus 2 minutes.
power.
Dragon's gone internal power. Now again, at T-minus 2 minutes, we'll finish liquid oxygen loading. And then a typical event, we will drain the propellant lines that go along the strong back, and we'll typically get a large cloud of condensation at about 90 seconds before launch as we see the propellants come back down off of the strong back to prepare for liftoff.
Stage 2 LOX load complete. Dragon is in auto idle.
All right, Falcon 9. With that, Falcon 9 is fully fueled. We have fuel on both the first and second stages, and both stages are filled with liquid.
Loud venting.
Filled with liquid oxygen. Dragon is also in auto idle. The flight computers on board Dragon maintaining their calculations, standing by for the T-0 mark. That next call out will be that Dragon is in countdown. Standing by now for that call.
FTS is armed, Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling. Dragon is in countdown.
All right, the final minute before launch. Just 47 seconds to go. Everything is ready for an on-time launch today.
Go for launch.
Endurance copies, go for launch.
Ground teams are ready, and Crew-3 is ready for liftoff, heading for that instantaneous launch window. "20 seconds to liftoff.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff. God. Break.
Copy, 1 Alpha. Laboratory in orbit. The International Space Station. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1, propulsion is nominal.
And that's the call we want to hear. Good performance on that first stage so far.
T plus 30 seconds. Falcon 9 powered by 9 Merlin 1Ds. Pushing Dragon into low Earth orbit on the way to the International Space Station.
Power and telemetry nominal. Stage 1 throttle down.
And we're into the throttle bucket in preparation for max Q. Getting ready to throttle the engines back up.
Stage 1 throttle up. Execute.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
That 1 Bravo call is for the second stage abort mode on the first stage. That is going to take them through the first stage, burning just before the second stage activates off the coast of North Carolina. That next milestone coming up shortly will be MVAC chill underway.
MVAC chill underway.
There's the call out. We're getting the second stage engine turbopumps ready for their ignition coming up in just a little more than 40 seconds. We've got the major events coming up here shortly. We're going to get main engine cutoff at 2 minutes, 36 seconds. The stages will separate, and then the second stage will ignite, carrying Dragon on its way into low Earth orbit. Everything continues to look good.
Stage 1 throttle down.
Stage 1 throttling down at 3.5 Gs. Getting ready for MECO.
MECO Stage separation.
Stage 2 Alpha.
Copy, 2 Alpha.
All right, we have ignition of the second stage. And you saw that green flash of that T-TEP fluid. And Crew-3 is now on their way to the International Space Station.
On the left side, first stage, you can see the titanium grid fins coming out, the streaks of the exhaust of the second stage engine going by, and the lights of Florida down in the background.
Acquisition signal.
That's right, and on your right, that second stage glowing. With that red color we like to see, indicating everything is proceeding well. Now 3 minutes and 40 seconds into flight. Everything's still on track.
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory
And that
nominal.
That call out of acquisition of signal
Copy.
Bermuda, that just means the Bermuda ground station has the signals from the second stage of Dragon and Falcon 9.
Now, currently on the first stage, we are coasting to apogee, beginning a slow 180-degree pitch, so that when the vehicle comes back through the atmosphere, the engines are pointed down towards the drone ship when we do the relight. Relight for the entry burn will come at T plus 7 minutes and 30 seconds, 3 minutes from now. Currently, the first stage about 166 kilometers up, continuing to coast to apogee for another brief period.
Meanwhile, that second stage still propelling the Crew-3 astronauts up the eastern seaboard, and it will continue to fire. That's about a 6-minute burn to deliver the astronauts into orbit.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Endurance copies.
And a good call out from the ground teams.
I always love to hear trajectory nominal, and the crew gets to hear it too on the call out.
Acquisition of signal New Hampshire.
And the New Hampshire tracking station has acquired the telemetry signal. Five minutes and 30 seconds into flight today, everything is still proceeding nominal.
And Courtney, right now on the second stage, it's such a large amount of propellant. It takes a while for second stage to really accelerate. The crew right now,
Dragon,
looks like they're
SpaceX,
pulling about.
trajectory nominal.
Looks like we're pulling about 1.5 Gs.
Yeah, right on cue, those check-ins on the second stage performance. Everything is still looking good on that second stage. The next milestone on the second stage will be SECO. And we're getting our views now from inside of Endurance, our first views of the crew on their way to the International Space Station.
We're 1 minute away from entry burn of the first stage. Hopefully we'll get a camera view back on the first stage as we light the 3 engines to come back into the Earth's atmosphere.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Endurance copies.
Another good check-in with the crew, confirming everything is still looking good so far on both ends. That next milestone coming at 7 minutes and 30 seconds will be entry burn start.
Currently waiting for the call out from the SpaceX propulsion responsible engineer that the 3 Merlin 1D engines have lit to begin slowing down the first stage prior to entering the Earth's
Stage
atmosphere.
2 FTS is safe. Stage 1 entry burn is in startup.
We've heard stage 1 entry burn to start up. We've lit the center engine. We've got the 2 side engines, 3 engines running. This is a 27-second burn. This will slow the first stage down. We'll then enter the atmosphere where the grid fins begin to work, and then we will fire the single center engine as we approach the drone ship.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
Confirmation entry burn shutdown.
And meanwhile, that second stage is less than a minute away from cutoff.
Stage 2 in terminal guidance.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
There's that call for Shannon.
Stage 1 is transonic.
Stage 1 decelerating as we prepare for entry burn, but our attention is right now looking at stage 2 as we get ready for shutdown.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
And the second stage has done its job. Our Crew-3 astronauts have been delivered into orbit.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
Landing leg deploy.
Endurance copies. We feel Flico and Sile confirms we are in space.
Dragon SpaceX, launch escape system is disarmed.
Stage 1, landing is confirmed.
And we've heard the call out. Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
Loss of signal Cape and acquisition of signal Newfoundland.
Some great call outs. That next milestone is spacecraft separation around 12 minutes into flight. Getting a view now of the Crew-3 astronauts from a camera aboard Dragon. The crew now coasting in low Earth orbit, still attached to that second stage. Again, that next milestone coming in about 2 minutes. That second stage will separate, and Crew Dragon will be flying free.
And Courtney, right now, the Falcon 9 second stage is still attached to the Dragon capsule. When it's time, Dragon will command separation from the Falcon 9 second stage. Right now, that second stage, under control of its flight computer, is essentially going through a sequence to idle the second stage, make sure we're not pulsing any of the cold gas thrusters, the engine has been purged out. Essentially anything that might cause motion of the second stage, we're making sure that all of that is eliminated so that when Dragon separates, it's got a very stable platform to move away from. I believe the cheering in the background, they're getting video back of Falcon 9 first stage on drone ship as we get ready for Dragon separation.
That's right, John. Separation coming just 10 seconds from now. Standing by for that call.
Expected loss of signal, Wallops.
And again, we are standing by. There we go.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Endurance copies, you say.
Dragon, CE, welcome to orbit. Hope you enjoyed the ride from F9. Dragon will take you from here. Safe travels. Stand by for words from LD.
And Endurance, LD here. On behalf of the SpaceX launch and recovery teams, it was a pleasure to be part of this mission with you. Enjoy your holidays amongst the stars. We'll be waving as you fly by. Cheers.
Wow. Incredible views of the Crew now in orbit on their way
Thanks,
to the
guys.
International
It's been
Space
It was a great
Station.
ride, better than we imagined.
And some final words from the Crew as well. There they are, our Crew-3 astronauts, now in orbit. That next milestone will be the deployment of the nose cone. That'll be about a 5-minute process. It'll expose those forward bulkhead Dracos and will prepare them for checkouts as well.
Courtney, watching them in zero-G right now, working their displays, it looks so easy, but we had the benefit of watching the launch team, the spacecraft team, the NASA team, everybody working here for the last weeks, working through this, and it's good to see it come out looking just so easy right now.
Yep, it's been a long time coming, and we're so excited to see them in orbit.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
Endurance copy, VCSA will be opening advisor shortly.
Well, it was a beautiful launch from here at Hawthorne headquarters, at SpaceX headquarters here in Hawthorne. I can't imagine how the launch looked from over at Kennedy Space Center.
Yeah, pretty incredible launch. We also got to see their zero-G indicator on the screen. It looked like a little turtle, so I'd love to hear the story behind that. But an amazing launch, an amazing day so far.
Yeah, that's right. And with that, we'll go ahead and send it back to Kennedy Space Center. Daryl, how was the launch from your end?
Well, it was simply stunning. Thanks. We're back here at the Kennedy Space Center with Shannon Walker.
Okay, just a very quick thank you for everyone for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it for joining us on Geeksvana Live for Geeksvana in Space. We'll be back soon with some more awesome coverage of the NASA and SpaceX business. So yeah, as I say, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I'll see you next time on Geeksvana Live.